how much do they notice how you encroach on their land, and that changes how they react. And you know, if you own, even if you own your own house, you know if someone moves something. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Misery with James Caan. You know, really good.
Where are you
Stephen
going with
King
this?
book. I'm getting there.
Okay.
There will be no hobbling today.
Okay.
Unless I don't get rid of all the cards. Okay, we're clear on this. Okay. So, but he goes through and he moves an item, and to him it was nothing. But she knew he was out of bed because she knew where that item was supposed to be exactly, because it always faced a certain way. To him, it was, oh, I knocked over a penguin, whatever. But to her, she knew that penguin was always facing, I think it was south or something like that. And she knew the dust on all the items because she knew that was something she did. Same with when you go out in the woods and animals. Like, I was working with, maybe we should start?
No, we're recording. I already hit
okay.
the button, so you go.
Oh, cool.
You were on a roll. I wanted to get this.
So I was out in the woods the other day, and I'm digging a hole, not for any specific reason, but a
He's
pond.
putting a pond in, all right?
I'm making a nice tiki mini putt. When it's if you get a chance, check out Lot 56 on Facebook. I'll start posting pictures once it gets so it looks like a mini putt. I'm doing a Land of the Lost theme. So the nice thing is I can basically do anything and call it whatever I want, because Land of the Lost, you know, he had everything, and dinosaurs. So when I'm digging and I'm throwing dirt everywhere and I'm moving everything, and I just look up because I hear a noise. There's been 2 deer looking at me probably 10 minutes. They're probably as far as the gentleman right back there. Wave your hand. Yep, that would be you. Yep, the guy spinning. Okay. They're probably that far away. They're controlling this whole interaction, because if I would have moved wrong or whatever, they would have bolted, you know. And, you know, I talk to a lot of witnesses about their encounters, and you talk to them about, you know, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? But when I encountered those 2 deer, it was the same conversation. Like, I watched them, and then I watched them as I was digging for another 10 minutes, and they got bored with me, and they moved on to eating grass somewhere else. So then, about 10 minutes to 20 minutes later, I'm still digging, because this hole is going to take me probably the rest of my life to dig, you know, because I got to make a whole trench. It's going to be beautiful when it's done, though. But, you know, point, though, is I look up again because something else moves. There's been a deer about as far as me to this nice lady right here, okay? He's been watching me at least 10 minutes, just chewing on whatever he's doing. He didn't care I existed. Okay, now, like I said, if I would have moved wrong or something he didn't like, he would have, you know, bolted. But it shows that 2 things. 1, the animal is in charge of the interaction. Okay, and 2, that no matter what, you know, you're never really prepared to encounter something different. Because I didn't have my phone on me, I left it in the truck because I didn't think I needed it, because I only take pictures usually like daily of what I've done. I don't take them while I'm there. I would have had a great picture that would have been like a deer just staring at me like, you're stupid, why are you digging in the dirt? You know? But like that whole interaction, when you guys think of, when you listen to people that tell their stories about a cryptid or tell them whatever, think about your experiences in the woods, and you'll fill in and you'll relate a lot more. So I know I went the long way around, but that's my story.
So take that one step further. This is where you took it yesterday.
Yeah.
With habituation. Right, are you guys familiar with Sasquatch habituation? People that have repeat encounters over and over again, make extraordinary claims but never have any evidence to prove it, right? So you think that at some point while you're out doing these interactions and you have your 2 o'clock appointment with Sasquatch every afternoon, you would be prepared to have a photograph, or there would be something to show for it. And I'm not saying habituation doesn't happen. I think there are some incredible situations that do occur. I don't think it's nearly as dramatic as the stories we get on a daily basis, on a routine basis.
He did not.
He's not going to knock on your door and ask for garlic. But why is there no evidence of these encounters? That's something that's stuck with us for a long time. You have people writing books, 50 years in Tennessee with Bigfoot, and all these stories you're starting to hear more on podcasts, and we'll get into how that's going to relate into the missing people here in just a little bit. But just think about that. Why is there no proof? And when did it become okay for us to start accepting all these stories with no evidence to back it up? So as a community, we're kind of in two places right now. There's the folks that are really interested in the folklore and the story behind it. And then there's the folks who are really interested in the science and the quest for proof, or the quest of getting the evidence, Matt, right? Would you not say?
Absolutely.
And that's where we're at, right? And as your content creators, like we are, guys, we're just having a hard time trying to figure out where the hell we're going to land on this. Do we want to be storytellers, or do we want to continue where we started on this in 2006 of being the driving force behind the scientific aspect, promoting the research and promoting, or is there a third that where it just kind of blends together? All right. So I've talked to a lot of folks this morning out in the main room about, what do you want out of a podcast? What do you want anymore? And maybe we've become distant and disconnected from what you folks actually want to listen to. So as you go about your day, come see us over at the table and let us know what you really want. Because we don't know what you really want anymore, evidently. Like, we've been stuck in a time machine in 2006 where we're still going after science and science and science, which is important because inevitably, how long do you go promoting legends with no reality behind them? How long is it okay for us to keep going and having conferences and festivals and events without having any kind of, I guess there has to be some conclusion to this at some point. When do we call it? When does that happen? And that's where my personal dilemma is. How far do we go? How long do we keep promoting? How long do we keep driving this and going to these events and having these wonderful, which I'm not opposed to, by the way. I think as much awareness as we can drive to cryptozoology, to these stories is great. I think, however, it has to come with a price. It has to come with a decision or a conclusion. What do you think? Where do we go?
Well, the positive aspect of what he's saying is the bright side is every other Monday we have a podcast. We are also, while we're doing that, you can sign in or you can follow us on Facebook while we're talking and chime in. Have a conversation. If you see that I've been babbling on about something you really hate, write it down. I want to know. Because the fact is like, we do this a lot for everybody else, but we also do it because we're learning so much that we just want to get it out.
It's still a passion,
Yep,
right? Yeah,
yep.
absolutely.
Matt probably has more words to say. I'm sorry that I'm over-talking you. You got stuff?
No, not at all. Especially talking about the podcast itself. That's these guys here are the masters of that. I'm just kind of a researcher that likes to come on their show and likes to discuss some of the topics, but these guys here are really, they've been in it from the very start. So, when you look at these different podcasts and these different groups that come forth, really, these guys here are the OGs of that. So I give them a lot of credit and I let them do their thing. So,
for how many of you is this a recent interest? Like,
two.
okay, what about 10 years or more? All right. So, and how many of you really don't care? You're just here for the beer. Any of you? No? Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. That's great. That's great. If my wife was here, she'd hate every minute of this. Okay. I've been married 24 years. That's why we don't bring her. I don't know why she puts up with me or why I've dedicated so much time to this, but it's
sexy.
Thank you. It started for me as a kid. Probably. How old are you, young man? 10. I was 9 when I started getting into this. I read a book, Sasquatch Apes Among Us by John Green. It's not a little book. It's a voluminous text of 500 and some pages. It's intense and probably have no business reading it at 8 years old. But my dad, I talked a lot on a road trip, and my dad's like, here, read this. So, and he created a monster because as I got into my later teens, I started going out into the woods, talking to people on the internet. Don't do that without talking to your parents, by the way. It's a different world now than it was back. Maybe it's not. We just think it is.
Well, back when he had a book, we all know books, right? Little paper and stuff like that. We had to go to the library for that and all that. Now you can just punch in things. Now make sure how you word it Okay, big and foot can get
Stop.
weird.
Okay, yeah.
Hey, I'm trying to help this.
That's okay. He's got parents that, okay.
Yeah,
good.
okay. Instruct your children how the internet works before you just let them live. Okay?
Yeah, that's
All
better.
right.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it is a different world where you can learn everything you want to know about random things. And that's part of what I love about being out in nature. Like, I tripped the other day on something and I was like, is this poison ivy? I pulled up an app and it said, no, it's not. Thank God. But the fact is, though, is you can identify all kinds of things while you guys are out in the field just by using your phones and your 5 senses.
Now, I will say that. Don't become solely dependent on this.
5 senses.
This is great as a tool. As we were talking to Mike Ann, Matt and I out in the lobby, he's got a plethora of apps on his phone that in the moment he can listen and identify a bird that's chirping. So all these things, if you're real serious about the research or just curious about life and what's going on around you, should be on your phone now. It can be used a lot more than, what Prince Harry is doing this week or whatever. There's a lot of use for this. Use it smartly and use it for the research. So much, you can't be armed with enough information.
Yes.
That's what Matt and I have learned. Matt and I are both active investigators. James, on occasion, he gets out there, not as much as he used to when he was a younger man, but we get out there.
Not that old.
And, old enough.
I'm going to get a scooter.
Yeah. All-terrain scooter out there in the woods. An
Little
all-terrain rascal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see you motor around a little bit. That'd be fantastic video footage for the YouTube channel. But, arming ourselves with information is probably then the most important part. Not what bigfooting's boring, all right? If you've put as much time into this as many, you're going out in the woods to just go out in the woods. 9 times out of 10, nothing's going to happen. Probably 9.95 times out of 10, nothing's going to happen to you. But you hope for that 0.05% that something does. And when it is, I can count on one hand the amount of interesting experiences I've had in 28 years. I say question people that are having experiences every time they go out in the woods. Question people that are having experiences every other time they go out in the woods, because something's not right. It's just a law of average. Something is not right. If people are having that many encounters, why? What are they seeing that we're not seeing? What are they doing that we're not doing? And the fact of the matter is, most of the time they can't tell you because it's not there. It's not real. Pareidolia is becoming a big problem. Every time you post a picture on the internet, it happened last week or this week. Someone posted a picture up of 2 monkeys looking over a fence. It was a mask that looked like you got at the Dollar General. And if you went through and read those
Were they
comments.
from Georgia?
No, they're not from Georgia this time. No, they're just 2 schmucks with gorilla masks. But this all of a sudden became touted by people as great footage. And it's not. But that's what we're still constantly up against. Real science and real legitimate research going up against these sensationalized posts. And when you go through and read through the comments, there are folks that are just diehard committed, and they'll fight tooth and nail for something that's clearly a mask. But because that person that posted it is somebody they believe in so much, that's the end-all be-all. The cult of personality wins again, right? So rational thinking, critical thinking, it just needs to be amplified again. And that's kind of what we do with Sasquatch Experience, kind of jazz that up a little bit. It's kind of hard to be the cool guys when you're the science guys, right? I bring him along for the humor. That's what tends to keep people. What? You had a thought?
I was waiting till you were done.
Go ahead.
Are you
Interrupt
good?
me. That's fine. It doesn't stop you any other Monday, so why are you stopping me now?
I didn't have snacks.
Oh,
okay.
okay. I got
All right,
you.
fine. So the one thing is, you guys get to be the 99%. Isn't it amazing? That never saw anything or never.
Did anybody
whatever.
see anything in the room? Has anybody
Anybody?
had an experience? So you can share it.
So
It's okay.
but you can be that 99%. And the thing is, he is right that 95% of it is just being out in the woods and looking at things and getting an idea. But while you're doing that, learn things. Like I said, it's like my deer experience and my other experiences out in the land is, I start to notice more things that are stupid that, like, a year ago I never realized existed. Like, I can tell there's a gopher in the one end of the lawn, and I can tell when he's moved his play. I can tell where there's been deer and without. And yes, I have like 4 game cams, but the game cams don't tell me where the deer were. It's being outside going, okay, that's been moved slightly. There wasn't poop over there. You know what I mean? You get it, a lot of you wilderness guys and girls or people, We'll go with people.
People.
Okay.
People,
All right.
yeah.
We all go with people. Okay. All right. You guys, you realize that, you know, get out there and go ahead and enjoy the day, but yet, because not every encounter is going to be a cryptid. But if you enjoyed the day, at least you weren't at work. Okay?
Yeah, how about that?
And make sure that when that next day, when you had to go back to work, you're like, oh, yesterday it was like I was at work. Okay, then you failed. Okay, you got to find a way to enjoy being outside. And then you learn things. Like I've learned so much in a year, and so has he, about stupid little things that you would have never known if you don't get out in the field. And not every field day has to be, I wrote 14 journals about how I saw blah, blah, blah. It could just be you remembered that you saw a really cool woodpecker. Like, I never knew how much noise woodpeckers made until I'm out there trying to fix something and I'm nailing a thing and I keep hearing this noise and I'm like, is it a predator out there? Because it makes the same noise. Have you ever been out in the woods and you hear the woodpecker, does it not? Did you ever watch The Predator? That little noise it makes, a chattering, right? Right? If your mind isn't in the right place because it's 8 a.m. in the morning and no one should be up, I was like, oh my God, this is where I die. You know, and so like these little things, like I could now I can pinpoint where that woodpecker is. Like a year ago, I was like, okay, he's within an acre or whatever. I can hear it, kind of move my head a little bit and go, yeah, that tree over there. And then I started being able to see them. And like I said, animals get familiar with you and things like that. That's why I have a deer problem. I don't see it as a problem, but it's kind of neat. But like the more you're out, the more you'll get out of it. Okay. I think I
Well,
said
no,
that.
the land project is great to talk about because we started it as two city boys trying to learn how to homestead, trying to learn how if something happened. And we're not
can't grow
doomsdayers by any means, but if something shit goes down, I want to know how to garden, you know, like and feed ourselves. So that's what the whole land project started as. But it's turned into more. We've learned so much more about the world we live in, the natural world we live in. It's been pretty incredible. You remember when we did that garden years ago? It was on
The water company made us
water
go away.
company land. Yeah, we started a garden out on water company. We didn't realize it. We just thought it was some area alongside the road. We didn't care.
So
really.
I planted strawberry plants. I thought, oh, the strawberries are nice. I'll stop by every so often, get some wild strawberries, maybe some blueberries, stuff like that. Something to draw in the animals or whatever. We got followed by the water company.
Well, there was also
I'm
a
probably
sighting
on the
out that
list.
way. That's what started us out there. We thought maybe if we could
He had
feed
a
this
scientific
thing.
reason. I just
Yeah.
like to be in the woods. Yeah.
And we got chased out by the water authority. They didn't take kindly to us being there. But anytime we've been chased out of somewhere, we've never been given a good reason. Just they don't want us there.
We also didn't stop to speak to them. We just kept driving.
But we've never been given a good reason either.
You know.
When you're followed by a
just so
white
we're-
van
just so we're clear.
in the middle of the night, you're followed for miles, by the way, not just a couple blocks. This thing he took an alternate route home.
Past the police station.
Yeah, just so we could get away. Like, we've been chased out of some areas. The Game Commission at State
But-
Game Lands
but-
252.
But to be honest, though, the bright side of that whole situation is we survived the encounter by not stopping for the van. Okay?
Yeah, that's
Right?
true.
You know,
We could have been trafficked.
Just so we're clear, okay?
Yeah. State Game Lands 252 is another area in Pennsylvania. Central PA, I guess it's not North Central, it's Central PA.
It is
Right near
Federal Penitentiary.
Federal
Yeah,
Penitentiary.
they really enjoyed us being out there doing our Sasquatch research. But the whole reason why we went out
couldn't figure
there,
out why there's a red dot on my forehead.
yeah,
Weird.
which you couldn't see except for the night vision scopes we had on the cameras. You guys didn't remember the old Sony Handycams had the night shots? Well, we're out there using them, and we see these beams coming through the scope, and it's from the guard tower.
I'm like,
they're
I think
watching what we're doing.
It's time to go home.
Clearly on our side, mind you, but I guess they didn't like us call blasting and making noise, disrupting the federal.
200 feet from a prison.
Yeah, well, hey,
That had
it was
prisoners that-
was on our side. That's a state game land. We were allowed
Yeah,
to
and
be
it was
there.
a federal prison that had people that don't exist.
That's true, yeah.
Right? I don't know if you know much about Pennsylvania, but some of our prisons have prisoners that aren't really there.
9/11 terrorists
You know.
and folks associated
You weren't
with us.
cool enough to make it to Gitmo. You're in
You're in Allenwood, yeah.
You're in
So-
Allenwood, okay? You know.
But we've been chased out of there. The Game Commission has actually finally accepted us. When we go out there, we leave our business card, and they leave us alone.
Yeah.
But it didn't start out that way. They always wondered why we were,
Make friends.
going out that way, and
But not
a lot of them
people like
thought
that.
we were crazy until they actually stopped to talk with us and got to know us a little bit and realized we're pretty down to earth people. But they've bailed us out of a couple situations. So make friends with your game commission. We had a group of
Wayward hunters.
I don't know what they were. They they drove out in their trucks in the middle of the state game lands and fired at us. We ate dirt pretty quick and called in, took them 10 minutes to come out and get us. So that was pretty scary. We've had some frightening experiences that have happened with people out doing this research, not so much with Bigfoot. I'm more scared of people than I am Sasquatch, by the way.
If you watched the movie yesterday, one of the key things I got from that is we are more dangerous than the Sasquatch, but we're also in their property, so make sure you know.
No, so we could talk about yesterday's movie. Did you guys all go and see Sasquatch, Land of the Missing, or On the Trail of Bigfoot? What'd you think?
Loved it.
Yeah? Seth said he felt it was dark. I felt it was truthful. I didn't really feel it was dark as much as it was, I think, even as some of the other movies he's done, it was pretty honest about the situation. I think the problem is when we start talking about missing people, we only give ourselves an hour to talk about it. And you can't really get deep into these cases. And he had a couple cases on there. I think we go back to David Paulides and give him some credit for the work he's done on missing people. But even when you go through, like they still lack some specifics that I would like as a researcher to really dial in and get some more truth out of. And when you only give yourself an hour, you paint the best picture you can. We had an entire season dedicated to the missing.
Which is still
Season
be
4.
able to hear.
You can still listen to us on Spotify. If you enjoy this, you'll probably enjoy that a lot more. But one of the problems I had with it is we just couldn't go deep enough in the allotted time we had to do it. And unfortunately, the attention base of an audience and my own attention base, could you really do one case? Like, how many episodes could you really do before, at the end of the day, it's still a mystery. Some of these people are gone and they're never going to be found, and that's very tragic. How much of it can you really, beat to death and still be respectful and not jump into supposition of what caused it? I think we ended it with, could Sasquatch be a culprit? Absolutely. But does it do justice to the families of the people that have gone missing? I don't know, right? And to me, it's you got to walk that fine line of propriety on that. So we've really wanted to go into it and really get deep into some of the missing cases because it's fascinating to me. Why are people going missing? Why do they go missing in these clusters? Where do they go? Is there a paranormal element to this? And as a science guy, that kind of puts me into some uncomfortable thinking. But is it unscientific to dispel them? Right? You have a potential answer that you should still explore as scientifically as possible. But if you're just easily dismiss it, you're not really being scientific, then, are you? And that's the problem I have with science and Sasquatch in general, is that so much of it's dismissed because we're in dogmatic thinking, when it's really unscientific to not think in the way a lot of researchers are thinking.
Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the graphics.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get a chance with Seth's
in the movie,
movies,
the different reenactments
Yes.
and whatnot, the visuals were
You get
great.
a chance to watch his Mothman movie, the original one he made, not the remake that he made. That isn't a bad movie either way. I'm not cutting that movie down, but the fact is the graphics on when they show, like the teenagers driving down the road of the TNT, and they got the Mothman behind them, and they got the Men in Black, and what's the guy's name?
Hendrik Cold.
Hendrik Cole.
Yeah.
Like, he has so many good visuals on that. That's why I always like Seth's movies, because he tries to be objective and original, but he's still an entertainer. And so if you guys get a chance to watch the movie and you didn't, take the time to get it, or one of you buy it and then maybe find a quiet place and you all watch it together. I don't care how it works out, but you need to take the time. And if you don't have the time to watch it today, I'm sure at some point it'll either be on like Hulu, Netflix, Tubi is amazing. Has everybody watched the Tubi? Okay, classic horror, classic whatever. Tubi is amazing. Seth is on Tubi. So just take your time. And I think everybody gets Tubi I think they give it out to everybody. My favorites are some of the old movies that you've never seen, TV shows like that you can't get on regular TV anymore. Tubi has those. I know I'm just promoting Tubi.
Yeah,
Maybe
there's
they'll
a
give
lot
us
of Tubi. We're not even getting paid for that.
Maybe they'll give us money. Tubi, we'd like money. But anyway, see, I said it specifically to the little box. But the thing is with his movies you get the quality that he put into it.
There's a lot of research that goes
Yep.
into them. Absolutely. When we go back into The Missing last night, Land of the Missing, how about that story from Fred, the kind of modern day Ape Canyon? You didn't see that last night, Matt. You weren't with us.
I did not. I was out the camp.
That was my favorite takeaway from the movie. And those of you that haven't seen it, it'll be available soon. But those of you that did, that guy's poor encounter when he's out at that little isolated cabin, him and his elder and his nephew or little cousin. And this massive, 13-foot tall Sasquatch?
Was multiple assailants.
It turns out to be multiple, but it's specifically that 13-foot monster that just terrorized these guys in this cabin. And they made their way out to a skiff to escape, and he fired some shots into the bloody thing, and it didn't do anything. It just stopped it, but it didn't take it down.
It didn't even really phase it per
No.
se. It just kind of and he was totally freaked out, and he's like, I had to calm people down, and Sean had an encounter much like that, where he saw something and they
Not
had
like that.
Well,
Not like that at all.
They had a weapon.
Okay.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, we did have a weapon.
They
We
had
did,
a weapon. But the one thing they learned, the gentleman that had the weapon was actually trained military. And he said, I can't just go out there and fire blindly. I have to have a target that I can see, because say it's a random hiker and now you're up for murder. It's not a good Tuesday.
Episode
Okay.
16, if you guys get a chance and go back and listen to one of the old Sasquatch Experience episodes, Incident on Rockton Mountain, we talked about my encounter with my friend Dustin and Brother Ray. We had a repeat visitation to our campsite that really scared the hell out of us. They go deep into the episode. What were you saying, James?
He said something. I just wanted to know.
Yeah, you don't want to shoot a Sasquatch.
No, I wouldn't recommend it.
Or a random
Yeah.
person.
Alive, like the rest of the people.
No, I think there's a lot. Honestly, I think there's a lot of truth to that. You see the one, but you don't know how many others are
Kind of like
around
a
you.
raptor.
Yeah, I guess that would be
The other ones
appropriate.
kind of come
Yeah.
around, and yeah. Sorry, I watch a lot of movies.
You better just bring some lettuce with you, and some apples, and some pears,
It's just
and some nuts.
Take
Let it
this
leave you
apple
alone.
and don't kill me. Here's these nuts.
yeah. Well, you put yourself in that position though, and like my encounter was scary, and we weren't even harmed, or I didn't really feel there was a threat of harm. Just really in a very uncomfortable feeling that whole time. This guy's almost face to face.
Yep.
And he's
With
pumping rounds
multiple.
into this thing, and it's not doing anything.
It's not even phased.
Matt, you're a law enforcement officer. You stand there, pump rounds into something, and it doesn't move. What how?
Well,
would you-
I mean, there's a lot of questions as to what kind of rounds he was using. Was he using hollow points or, just lead ball?
I don't know if that was specified in the movie.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
There was
if he
actually a
did.
discussion
Does anybody know?
long
Did they
time
say
ago
that?
about
I think you said it was a 30-aught.
30
That's what I
yeah.
thought.
30-06, which has the penetrating power to pretty much go through anything. But the one
45
thing is
Magnum?
that you're talking about something that again, we look at some of these bigger animals like an elephant, where their hides are so thick. And you may get that penetration into the upper layer, or you're getting that complete penetration into the into where the organs are, and that
So
might
it's
be
a
an
scrape
issue.
more than a vital.
Possibly,
Okay.
possibly, or their vitals may be in different spots than what we're normally used to. I mean, I know from hunting, I know where the deer's lungs and heart are. A bear, I know where their lungs and heart are. All different animals, if for large game, they're not always in the same exact spot as, especially for something that may stand on two legs. Those specific organs may be, just off a couple inches to the left or to the right or down. So you may possibly be doing damage to the animal, but it may not necessarily be a fatal hit.
Or just upsetting it more.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
That's a good point, Matt. Did anybody read Max Brooks' De-Evolution? That's a great great book. They're making it into a movie, which I can't wait to see. It's Sasquatch play. What do they call it? Sasquatch exploitation film. It's definitely going to be that. But it is, the book is fantastic. And one of the things they talk about in that book is the different arrangements of the internal organs, which is really interesting. And it's, maybe we're not designed the same.
Correct. And again, you have to look at, you have a very thick hide. You have around that goes through. Is it going to cause that shock? Normally and I'm just going to tell you, if somebody does get shot, they do have that shock that happens to their system. And that will most likely, just from that, is probably going to do a lot, most of the damage. Because now all of a sudden your organs and your tissue are starting to expand. But with something that we don't know about, again, we just don't know. It could be passing through fatty tissue. It could be passing through, part of the other part of the hide. We don't know.
Yeah, it's just one of those points, I guess, that, again, you try to add some rationalization to why it didn't stop this thing or why it didn't. And like, some good questions, what ammo was he using, right?
Yep.
Those are all, questions we might have to ask Seth later
Yes.
that he might have answers for if they got it. But there were some other interviewees on that documentary who were fantastic. Norm, who was a state park or a national park ranger, he was phenomenal. They were talking about the Dark Pyramid, which I had not heard about until I watched that documentary last night. I've never heard of did you guys hear about the Dark Pyramid before in Alaska? I've never heard of that. I don't know how I've never heard of it, but the concepts like that, scare the hell out of me. It's just, it's not military of origin, but they know it's there, and it's they tend to keep you away from it. But it's one of the things they use to try to explain people that have gone missing. They used a couple stories about, and I don't want to give the plot away to everybody, people listening. I really want you to watch it. Potentially, I mean, that's true. Everybody does, but in this instance, it just adds another element and depth to why the people are going missing. And with all the YouTube channels and the podcasts and everything dedicated to missing people, you'd think there'd be a lot more in the news about some of these cases. You get these secondhand. I was listening to one the other morning, these secondhand encounters from people, but there's nothing of substance where you can go and verify it. There's no name. There's nothing where you can go and validate that these things actually happened. And that's the problem when you're looking at this from, again, and you guys will hear me say this a lot because it's where my mind goes, the scientific perspective and the logic-based reasoning. There's a person that's missing and they've gone, okay, I want the name of that person. I want to be able to look at the story and what happened to the effort made to find this person. You can't do that with their second or third-hand stories. And sometimes these second and third-hand stories are so fantastic.
They get added on to.
Yes, that you just don't know.
Game.
And that's why I guess I get a little disenfranchised with the whole missing people thing. And as we went in and did a whole season on it ourselves, the frustrating part is not being able to go deep and get more context as to what happened. It's so easy to dismiss these things, but the guy talked about last night in Alaska, the guy whose friend went missing when he was 16. Alaska takes more than it gives.
16,000 people?
More people go, just as itself, unforgiving environment. You're dying from environmental reasons. How it can switch on a dime. And it happens sometimes in our own areas. People go, you and I just talked about this with somebody this morning. On average, in the area we lived, we've had an elderly person go missing once a week. They've walked off on their own almost weekly in the last 2 months. Every week we've had another person, just walk off. Most of them have been found. Unfortunately, a couple have been found, passed away. But, there's story there. You can go and research the efforts of what happened to these people.
It can come a full circle.
You can't do that to some of these second and third stories. And so when I was talking to Patty, I don't know if Patty made it in here or not, but I was talking with her and her husband. Patty was like, well, sometimes we'd like to be able to, reason for ourselves that these are fact or fiction stories. Mm-hmm. But as you're trying to look at this scientifically, or even from a law enforcement standpoint, You don't have that luxury of trying to decide that you're dealing with supposedly real lives. And if you're not, those stories are contaminating the legitimate missing people that are happening.
Correct.
They're not doing any justice to people that are really missing. So I have a problem with it in that respect.
And I was going to say, when you do hear second, third hand, that's hearsay.
Sure.
When you hear it directly from somebody involved, that would be direct evidence towards towards the investigation on whether it's a missing person or any sort of case that you're working on.
There just should be like a fact and fiction category in this, and then if you're tuning in to listen to some of these, there really should be a known disclaimer that whether they're a real missing person sighting or this is just a creepypasta fabricated kind of thing. Because I'm serious. It's not. I don't want to say labeled. It's not a food carton, but it's not labeled that way.
Yeah.
And for people, and it gets that way with Bigfoot sightings too. It's not labeled that way. And when you have people legitimately putting effort to find missing people or to find, evidence of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and then you just spend more time wasted, and particularly in missing people where time is more important than anything, you're wading through the bull crap to find legitimate, documentable, cases. That's the problem I have with it. That was the whole irritation I had going through the missing persons cases. It's the whole irritation I have when we go to actually do legitimate investigations, is we spend more time, and it's not new. I mean, it's always been the case, but now more than ever, we spend a lot more time wading through what's real and what's not. And it's time consuming and it's a waste. And for me, again, somebody who, maybe you are a little bit more entertainment, and that's okay. We're a little bit more science. Matt and I are boots on the ground, more Matt so than me lately. Look at me. I haven't been really keeping up with my cardio. But we've, it's frustrating. And it's just something I have a really hard time with reasoning, especially with missing people. I think Seth's movie last night really hit a chord with me because I think he hit it the right way. Yeah, it's dark. And we're gonna provide you with a potential reason. We're not saying what it is, but he also left it open to, he left it in a good spot. That's all I'm saying. I'll let you guys decide how you took away from the movie. But I think it treated it very well. It was a very serious topic. As you can tell, I get a little heated talking about it because they're people. They're human lives, and they meant something to somebody. And we owe them a little bit more than just sometimes an episode or, an interesting story just to, creep people out. That's my point.
So has anybody out here investigated anything yet on their own? Real? Yeah? No?
No?
You were just, okay. Stretching? All right.
They're allowed to do that, James. Moving's okay.
Leave Santa alone.
I don't go anywhere
Okay. Yeah.
without my sleigh.
Yeah, there you go.
And he brings his own animals. He's got those 9 reindeer and the little. Are we allowed to call them elves?
The thing is, I've been paying attention for a number of years,
Hundreds.
a long time. But it's gotten to the point where the interest survives the ability to pursue. Because walking can be a challenge. So all I need to do is tell my daughter I'm going out into the woods. And you might as well just say I won't be back.
It's like an Alaskan Eskimo.
The thing is, you gotta
You're
remember
outside.
that when you walk as far as you go, you gotta come back the
Yeah.
distance.
I walked all the way to the movie theater like yesterday. I understand that.
I gotta lift to the palace.
All right. Well, I'm glad.
Stan Gordon's not in here. Stan Gordon, legendary Pennsylvania researcher. We tried to kill him last night by making him walk
We
to the
slowed
movie
down.
theater. We did. But you made a good point there. You do have to plan for that.
But you can't go out by yourself.
No, because that's how you become a missing.
Secondly, let's face it, if you go out with someone, you're the pain in the ass. Because they're always concerned about where you're going or what you're doing. Heaven forbid you should come upon something. Because you can't run, but you just have to be able to outrun the other person.
Him. Yep. That's
yeah,
been
and
our
if
game
you go
plan
out
forever.
with me, I'll guarantee you're not the pain in the ass. I'm winning. Okay, that one. Okay.
He fell in a 4-foot hole once.
Oh,
Everybody else jumped
So-
over it. He fell in it.
So we'll talk about that event. So later on that night, they're all standing around looking for research or whatever they're doing. And I'm like, it's cold. I'm done with this, blah, blah, blah. And so there's a rustle in the bushes about probably as far as that gentleman back there. I use people, sorry. And it's a rustle. It's a small rustle. You can hear it's low to the ground. You know the difference between a bear and a possum, right? When you hear it. You hear what's moving, things like that. It's coming closer.
They didn't.
It's coming closer. And I'm like, guys, that's not like a large cryptid or a deer. I said, it's low to the ground. I said, we're probably looking possum, porcupine,
It was worse.
skunk,
It was a skunk.
maybe. Okay. So the skunk pops out and they all run. Okay? No conversation with James like, hey, I see a skunk. We're going to run. They're like, we all see the skunk. No one talks for a second, and they all run. Well, my one friend, he's a huskier fella, he dropped his cell phone
Ray, not me. Ray.
right in front of me.
You inferred it was me. You leaned my direction.
No, yeah, I wasn't going to go that route, but you keep talking. All right, so he drops his phone in front of me, and I said, and he's like, so we get back to the car, and I catch up with everybody, and they're all like, and he's like, oh my God, I left my phone. I'm like, yeah, I know you did. I watched it fall. Didn't
pick it up, just left it there.
me and him, he goes to me, he goes, we're going to go out and find his phone. I was like, no, I'm good. I'm going to sit in the car where it's warm. And so when he leaves, I go, I saw his phone fall in front of me. I just didn't do anything because they left me. Okay?
Yeah, he did.
Right?
Made him walk
And
all the way back and
they
get his
spent
phone.
40 minutes out there looking for something, and I was like, if they take more than an hour, I'll walk out because I knew exactly where it fell. But when you're a team, leave nobody behind, or at least have a conversation that says, hey, we're going to run now because there's a skunk. Not, oh wait, where did they all go?
If he wasn't been buried in his phone, he would have saw there was a skunk. In all fairness, the phone is also why he fell into a 4-foot hole.
I was perfectly aware of what was going on.
He was not aware. He went right in that hole. We should have left you in that, but we got you out of that
He
hole.
still would have got the skunk, and they'd have lost the phone. And it was
True, but no.
yeah.
To your point, so the one person, he's the person. He's
Yeah.
the one you trip and run, and then
Yeah.
you all got to have one, guys. Someone's got to take one for the team.
So you're available on nights and weekends. They can rent you out. Okay. All right.
certain times of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing.
During the winter, you're busy.
Yeah. One thing I was going to add is, especially, and this could be done by anyone in this room, is we have friends of ours, I don't know if I want to say their names, but they're up in the Allegheny National Forest.
Okay, yeah.
And do the research up there. They're very passive in their investigations, and they get evidence. They'll get vocalizations. They'll have things happen. They'll get rocks thrown at them. But what they do is they'll drive around the forest roads. They're not going out all hours of the night, but generally from dusk on. They'll find a campsite. In the Allegheny National Forest, we have a bunch of what we call primitive campsites. So you have no one actually rents it, but you do have the fire pit there. You have an area where you can set up a tent. You have your car there.
No toilet or shower facilities.
No toilet or shower. That's why
it's
they call it primitive.
Yeah.
No cable.
no cable.
Unfortunately,
There's
no
a
cable.
hole 20 feet away. though.
But generally, what they'll do is they'll go out there and they'll start a fire in the fire pit, and they'll just sit there and generally, they may do some like very light call blasting. They're not going out all out, but they may do a couple wood knocks. They may do a couple whoops, and they just sit back and there's a lot of nights that they come back and they say, hey, we didn't have anything. But then there's other nights that they've gotten some really fascinating stuff happen to them. I know with me, I spend a lot of time in the woods. One thing I just want to kind of interject on, and this was coming back from earlier, with James talking about being familiar with your surroundings. And he's at the property where he knows basically the birds that are coming in. He knows the deer. He knows where all this wildlife is coming from. I go into spots, and I have a very wide research area, but I'm going into spots that I've never been to before. So I'll have that hyper vigilance going about me because unfortunately where I'm at, there's a lot of rattlesnakes.
Oh, bloody
Yeah,
rattlesnakes.
that's kind of like number one. There may be some crazy people out there. There's all sorts of
Emotionally unstable.
Yes, thank you. But what I'll do is from that kind of hyper vigilance, when I'm going through there, I will get to know. Hey, you know what? I see. I do see an area that could be a snake den. I do see an area here that. But then I'll pick up on other things as well. And now the big difference between us two is I'll go out and he knows all his spots. I'll go out and I'll find these little spots, and I may find a rock overhang that, you know what, maybe it looks like something was laying there. That may be a spot where maybe I'll put up a camera. Maybe I'll center in on that particular area doing a night investigation. But again, I do a lot of with that. That's a whole different topic about going out. But there's a lot of stuff that any of us in this room can do in terms of getting in a car, going down a forest road, and just stopping and listening to the sounds of the night. And you'll pick up on the owls. You'll pick up on the deer. You'll pick up on the smaller mammals, the rodents. You'll know all that. You'll get comfortable with that. And then it's when you do get that unexpected encounter that brings the excitement out.
And that comfort level is a two-way street. Like a year ago, those deer probably wouldn't have gotten near me. Now that they understand I'm not a direct threat, they're like, oh, okay, it's just him out there doing something stupid, But like you think about it, when you go out to a research area, if you guys have one that you like, you will learn where your areas are, but the animals will be like, oh, she's not a problem. Oh, he's not a problem. Oh, they're not a problem. Okay, well, we'll show a little more. You know what I mean? So
That's a great point.
The thing that I always say is though, what you want to do when that starts to happen is judge where your push line is. If you're in an area where consistently you're seeing, like, I'm going to tell you now, I have like game cams in my area. I can tell you now that 2 weeks from now, when I change the footage, I will probably find out where those deer came from because they don't care about the camera because they've been there for 2 years. Do you know what I mean? Same with, like, if you come into a new research area and you start strapping stuff to trees and strapping cameras here and whatever, a lot of times after I made a project or I touched something, I could notice on the camera that's been there a year ago when I put a new camera in, all the animals circled it to get an idea, what is this? Why is this here? Why is this in my yard?
Yeah.
Because it's their yard. You're just visiting, okay? But and you have to think of that. So a lot of when you guys put out bait or evidence collecting material, remember that it may not work on night 1. It may not work on night 3. If you have the ability to leave that there for a month later, you might get all kinds of footage all over because the animals will be like, because they smell that tree, it smells like you. The ground is disturbed where you sat there while you're screaming at it because you put the batteries in wrong. Okay, you know what I mean? All these things have happened, and those animals pick up on all that, just like if you had a new neighbor and he's over there fixing his fence. You go over and, you don't like directly, but you notice the fence is different. You notice this is different. You notice the noise he made. Take what you learn from average things and realize that when you go out to investigate, it's not about today is the day I'm going to catch everything. It's about what can I do in the long term to maybe make this my area that they like me? Make sense?
You know what I was thinking about, James, is last night they were talking about the baby voices or the weird voices in the woods, and they have no explanation. You and I have experienced that on the land.
Yeah.
We legitimately thought there were people having a conversation on the land, so we, hustled down to find them, and there was nobody there.
And we don't know
It
if that
sounded
was-
like a conversation going on, and there was nobody there.
we don't know what was making that, so we can't 100% sure. It could have been deer. It could have been a variety of things. Hey, welcome in. Come on in. All right. So, like, it could be anything. And that's what you have to look at and that's where once you're done investigating something, you sit down and break it down. And then, same with when you're asking people questions. Like if my friend Dave over there had an experience, I might ask him 10 questions to get an idea of what's going on. But then I'm gonna take those 10 questions, maybe do a little more research, maybe have another thing, and then we'll have another conversation later that root off those questions. You know, psychology is an amazing thing if it's used properly. You know, be polite. Some people, they get a little agitated when they tell your story. Try to realize that they're either hyper excited or possibly a little mental. But like in general, you want to take that information, then write it all down, and then go, okay, I don't believe this part. I do believe this part. I have additional questions about this part. You know, like I'm still digesting the movie from yesterday, but when I get some time, I'm going to ask Seth some additional questions because there maybe he wants to add later to the movie or make little cutscenes that say, hey, you know, we had these random questions about this, this, and this sighting. This was the answer we received. We just couldn't add it to a 2-hour film, you know. Do we want to ask them? Okay.
Whatever. I'll let you go. You're on a roll.
Okay.
You're doing great.
So, anybody have any direct questions?
Dave, go ahead. Man, that plant came early.
The gentleman we don't know that isn't really a plant.
I'm the unknown witness.
He's witnessed
One of
things.
the things that comes up to me when you're talking, you talk a lot about evidence. For me, evidence, the word itself is subjective.
Sure.
Unless I'm the person there viewing it and experiencing it. My question is a lot of the evidence that you pull from his interviews, of course, you pull a lot of that, unless you, in your cases, you've had direct experience. What would you say hardcore is a qualifier or a set of qualifiers that you look for when you're interviewing individuals? Because like for one person, something looks insignificant to you, it looks significant and vice versa. What would you say are qualifiers that kind of solidify?
Hey, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Is eyewitness testimony evidence?
It is.
Yeah. Why don't we treat it like that?
I know. Well, the one thing is, though, is you have to question
Sure.
the person that is making that statement. And you know what? I'm going to bring up, if you don't mind, I want to talk about Jeremiah from Bigfoot Society. About 2 weeks ago, he had a gentleman on his show.
We co-promote. It's okay. We're all
Yeah,
friends.
absolutely. Who
Tubi.
was
We want money from Tubi.
Stop it. Not Tubi.
who
Bigfoot
was
Society.
really had some like fantastic claims about things that were going on his property. The one thing that really caught me with this episode is he never actually said he saw what was actually making the calls, what was making the noises, what were leaving the items on his property. He never saw that. To me, that was a big point that this guy wasn't embellishing. He wasn't sitting there saying, he was in his mind. He said, this has definitely got to be a Bigfoot, but his testimony itself was honest because he's not claiming that he saw an 8-foot creature on at the side of his house. He was like, hey, I'm having these calls. I'm having the wood knocks. He found a part of a cow, and there was no farms around him for about 10 miles. He said he found a part of a cow that he believed they were kind of gifting him. He was seeing tracks. He did have some other other observations, but he didn't come right out and say. He was saying to himself this was Bigfoot, but he didn't come right out and say, I saw a Bigfoot, I saw this thing go through. And again, some of the things that happened to him may not have been Bigfoot. They may have been something else, but he was still honest with it. He may have thought then after thinking about everything, it has to be this. It couldn't be a bear, it couldn't be a woodpecker, it couldn't be a fox, making the screams, which it could. But he was just giving us that direct observation, and honestly, I thought that he was credible in that respect. And so an interview like that, I did enjoy, because again, you have somebody that probably does have some crazy things going on his property, and again, he's not.
And you could pull info from it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But then you have supporting evidence, which would
Absolutely.
what you said, the calls,
Yes.
footprints,
Yes.
those kind of things.
Yes.
So it all works together, Dave, about what you have. Like you just can't tell it with one piece. An eyewitness sighting, especially now, as we've talked about at the beginning, and as I beat it into everybody's heads ad nauseum, is a story's a story without any proof, right? You have to have something to substantiate it.
Yep.
And now, today more than ever, the claims get more outrageous and the stories get a lot harder to discern. We put the greatest guide to hoaxing out every week on the podcast. Collectively, as a group, we have made it so easy for somebody to go out and pull over the greatest hoax on all of us, because we put so much information that we're looking for out there. The fact that we haven't had that hoax that's been so great it's full of shit is amazing to me, because they all fall so flat on their face.
I think they overwork it.
Well, that's the problem. Sometimes the best lie is the simple one,
Yep.
right? And it gets complicated, but all these stories, the supporting evidence is what lends to it. So it's not just so much what is evidence, it's the evidence, which is the eyewitness account, right? And then the supporting evidence that goes along with it, in my opinion.
There's also a lot of other factors when you go into interviewing someone. There's different physiological processes that they go through when they're telling you the truth versus if they're telling you something that's not true. And you really have to be good. If you're doing the interviews, you have to be excellent at body language. Knowing how to read body language is one of the most important tools that we have when we're talking to witnesses.
A lot of the research partners I've had over the years, including yourself, has been people I could learn those techniques from. Mm-hmm. And it is important to have a base level knowledge of some of those things. So you're not just walking blindly into a situation. You're going to believe everything. And sometimes you can get your own bias in where you're hearing everything you want to hear to make it a legitimate setting. Because look, we don't want to waste our time either. Sometimes we get caught up in the crap so much and get caught up in the story. We want to believe it as much as the person that's seeing it. Yep. However, we have to allow the facts to separate that from the belief. Like there has to be something compelling, or it just stays into that kind of unknown potential. That's what really grinds me about these Class A and Class B and Class C sightings. We're typing sightings for something we can't even prove is legitimate, but we put so much effort into grouping it. Have you gone through?
Labels suck.
Yeah, but it's all based on the merit of the investigator investigating it. You don't get to see the evidence. You get to see at the end of one of those reports a recap. Sometimes you'll get a picture. Sometimes you'll get it, but most of the time, 9 times out of 10 anymore. And I'm just picking on the BFRO because they have the biggest database. Is you have a little bio of Matt Moneymaker at the bottom. They don't even have the investigator information listed anymore. So again, we spend so much time typing and putting this stuff together because it makes it easier for us to sort, I guess. It still doesn't always paint a complete picture or give you the merits to make a case.
On the other hand, with that, I remember with the old PBS website when we had the report from the ongoing research at Clearfield, at the farm in Clearfield, and they had a picture of a dead deer in a tree.
That was Weisshaupt.
that was
was literally, it looked like it was braided
Yes.
into the branches of the tree, the limbs of this deer. It was morbid.
Yeah.
And some entrails missing that you would imagine would be the heart, the liver, vitamin-rich organs that were missing. But that happened before I joined that group. But Joe Biello, the investigator, is still a friend of mine. It's disturbing. To run into
Absolutely.
that. You can't access that website anymore. It's not public. We're trying to get the material from that website to make it public on Matt and I's. Matt and I have launched a little research group called Semi-Pro Squatchers. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek because, there's no professionals in what we do. Everybody's an amateur. But we just thought it was catchy. And we're trying to get all that old data. The group that Matt and I used to belong to called the Keystone Bigfoot Project. And get all the information and roll it into a resource for folks. Of course, there's the Bigfoot Mapping Project out there now, too, that's doing a phenomenal job of Although some of the issues with that is you have to be careful you're not infringing on private property. Pennsylvania, specifically because that's where we work and live, Pennsylvania is either state lands or private property. And sometimes it's not clearly marked, and people get very upset when you're on private property. So always pay attention to that, too, when you're out there. Make sure you're not in somebody's land.
I'll do a quick plug for Onyx Maps.
Yeah.
If you guys know Onyx Maps, it's a great resource. The other thing, too, with Onyx Maps, and
A lot of product placement today.
absolutely. The one thing is I've been trained in orienteering, so I know my way with a compass and a map. But
Well, there might be a group of people that disagree with
I
that.
know. Well, that was two of us. That was me and
It was
me
you
and
and
Dustin.
I was along for the drive, too, so I can't complain.
I was involved with the March from
It was a
March from
death
Hell.
march.
Yes.
It'll be in my
yeah,
book
the death
when
march.
we-
Yes. So, anyways, well, this was well before Onyx. So.
Okay, before Onyx.
So what Onyx will do, and just to let you, everyone in here know, your cell phone, not to really scare you guys, but your cell phones work. Your cell phone mapping and GPS works when you're in airplane mode and when you're in an area with no cell service. So what I do is, and I have my research areas. I've downloaded the Onyx Maps app. I will go to the area and create, while I have internet, what's called an offline map. So that'll be a map, generally 10 to 20 miles of the area that I'm researching, and I'll save it. When I go to that area and I'm out of cell phone range, my map, my phone on Onyx Maps will work as basically an impromptu GPS. So I can track myself, I can see where I've gone. But the other thing too is it also shows property owners. So that's always a good thing. So I always know whether I'm going into a state park, a state forest, state game lands. Where I go it's quite a bit of public land. Sure. So I generally don't have to worry too much about the private property. But if I did have an area where there was private property, it would show me where those lines were, and it would actually track me to the point where I would be up against the property line. But it's a fantastic tool. Again, we were talking about being too reliant on this. So what I suggest is get the Onyx map, learn how to use that, but also learn your maps, have a map with you, and have a compass with you at all times. So you can get a little compass that you can put on a pin, for just a couple bucks. That will save your life out in the woods.
So
That's important. I want you to stay alive.
Yes.
before we move on to the next question, 3 major points.
We got 2 minutes.
One, when you interview someone, be polite and don't use a car battery. Okay. Maps are important. Make sure you have that so that when they find your body, they have an idea where you were, just in case your cell phone died. And secondly, most of the things we've all said are going to be recorded today, so you can go through, maybe I'll, tell Tubi we want money, okay? And take a card. That was number 4, okay? I've got nothing else unless you guys have an original question that could only take like a minute. Anybody? Ooh, yeah.
Just a quick question regarding research and evidence, and from everyone that raised their hand, have been into this for 10 or more years or
Yeah.
whatever, just interested on a cursory level. It feels like we're at a point where we're limited by our existing technology. So what improvements in technology are you seeing right now? Because we've been seeing some things on TV that are like a whole new way of researching that could, I don't know if we have the technology yet to really fully research like we do.
I think
That's a
the-
great question.
I think the big issue isn't that you mark it down as, a lot of us are funded by us. There's no grant program, there's no whatever. If you guys are getting money from somebody, give them my name because I want some, okay? But here's the thing is there are technologies that are 20 years ahead of us. The government uses stuff that they can pick off some guy in the middle of the desert from a satellite. So the technologies that we could use to find these creatures 100% exist. Problem is you or I can't afford it unless you're part of that 99% that has monies, and then we want to hang out with Batwoman.
Okay.
Okay, all right, you know. So what you got to look at is you got to use the technologies that you can afford, and you've got to use your 5 senses to find ways to make what you can afford or what you can take the time for to use in your research. So there are like he, with being an ex-police officer, probably had
He's not
access
actually
to.
still.
Oh, I'm still
Sorry,
am.
I didn't
Still am,
realize-
yeah.
You fired him. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been here all day. Okay, just so we're clear. But he has access to thousands of dollars of equipment that we couldn't touch. If somebody's in the military, there are drones that are multi-billion dollars that they could hunt these things down. They could find. They have drones that they have water drones that they could put inside a Loch Ness and figure out 110%. Problem is, the people who are doing it either don't have the money or are not going to tell you.
Well, that's
You know.
frustrating because I think we all kind of might feel the same, that the government probably has all of this information that we're all just trying to get, that they already have it. You know,
We had this
We had a
conversation.
show.
would-
We had a show about that.
We just had this conversation yesterday driving up here. Is so much of the, who decides what we get to know? There's somebody that makes those decisions for us. That information's probably out there. If you
the
go
one-
over and talk to Cliff Berrickman, he's had photos on game cams that he's seen that nobody else has seen.
Yeah.
Who gets to decide what we get to see? And just before I turn it back over to Matt, before I forget, because there's a lot of tools available to us that we just have to learn how to use better. It's the fact we don't take the time to learn how to collect evidence forensically, how to use the devices we have to the best of our ability, mapping software. There's 3D scanning apps you can get on your phone now. You don't even have to go out and cast a footprint anymore. You can scan the bloody thing with your phone and have a complete image of it, right? So we can use the technology we have better. We just have to take the time to learn how to use it, or find somebody that will teach us how to use it, like I do with Matt, who teaches me everything.
Thank you.
So I'm going to kind of go back a little bit too. And I don't want to disagree with what they had said, but I know.
I'm right here.
I was involved with a very serious manhunt many years ago in the Pocono Mountains. The person had shot 2 state troopers, killed one of them, and he was on the run for a month.
It's a big deal.
And we assisted the state police with attempting to locate him. I had the wilderness skills, so I tried to help as much as I could, particularly in my area. The one thing is this was one man that was in an area, and he traveled about 20 some miles, that was not seen. And we had state-of-the-art thermal cameras. Unfortunately, it was during September. So the leaves were still on we couldn't, if it was in the wintertime, he would have been picked off immediately. But because of the fact that it was in the early fall, the leaves still had the trees still had their leaves on. It was extremely hard for us, even with the latest technology that we had back then, we could not see anything. So it's possible that the feds, but we had the feds involved. And the best that they were able to give us were just a few thermal drones at the time. But I do know on the military end, yes, there's probably some really scary stuff out there. But for the stuff that they gave, even for us to find somebody, to find a person that was on the run for homicide, that they really weren't able to provide much. But on the other end, and I'm going to plug one more,
Tony
but this
Stark?
is no, this is a great plug though. I'm going to plug Seth and STM. Well, he's not here right now, but Seth and STM. The one thing is we've always talked about this. What do we always have in our hands? Our cell phones. These cell phones are cameras. So if you see something in generally, it's only within 1.8 seconds or so that you get to react, and you try to do that. Well, by that time, something's gone. But the one thing I'll say about Seth, and I really noticed this with Alex and the rest of the crew, is they use digital SLR cameras for video.
Sure.
And you know what? You can zoom, you get extremely clear footage. So if you had something like that in the woods, as opposed to your little cell phone camera, I really do think that the next PG type film is going to come from these guys. because of the fact that it's the equipment that they have.
Sure, and they know
Yeah.
how to use it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
again, it
And
goes
they
down
do.
to affording the equipment.
Courtney,
Knowing how to use it.
Yeah, great film person. But Alex and Eli, they're fantastic with that. And if we can, I know digital SLRs are a lot of money, but if you can get one, have it around your like we used to back in the good old days when we had regular film cameras, and are able to do that, that would be. Again, we may get something where somebody sees it on an iPhone and it's just a blob squatch. With that digital SLR, it could come back, it could be crystal clear.
Well, folks, we got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I'm Sean the Fork Chop Forker. He's James Baker. That's Matt Arner. You can find us all on Facebook. You can pick up one of our cards that he must give you, or he's walking home. Check us out every other Monday night at 9. We'll be doing a show this Monday where we're recapping the whole event. Just find us on Facebook. Thanks for sticking around and listening
Yes.
to us and tolerating us. We hope we entertained you a little bit, informed you a little bit. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you. We don't normally do this in front of an audience, so this
Yeah.
is a little different.
Oh, and thank you, sir, for
Yeah.
running
Yeah,
the
your
board
name again?
so that we didn't have to worry
Mike.
about it.
Thank
And
you, Michael.
Mike, you
I've
did an
been
awesome
good
job.
most of the year. Okay, I'm going to do my best to kind of clean it out.
Be on the naughty list, 11:59 Christmas Eve.
Can I get that in writing?
Still there, let's get your checkbook.
Santa, you made a big mistake.
Santa likes cash. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. I'm taking this one.